Let me ask you a question. What if the reason your team is stressed, your projects feel harder than they should, and your profits aren't where they should be has nothing to do with labor shortages, material pricing, the market, your subcontractors, or even your clients? What if the real issue is this? You've been letting your clients run your business, and without meaning to, you've adopted what I call the Burger King philosophy. You're listening to the Construction Leading Edge podcast, where it is all about systematizing your construction business so you can eliminate chaos and maximize three things: freedom, impact, and wealth. My name is Todd DeWalt. Our website is constructionleadingedge.com, and my team and I have helped hundreds of construction business owners, custom home builders, large-scale remodelers, and commercial general contractors go from I own a job to I own a business that runs without me. So let's jump into it. A few weeks ago, I woke up in central New York, looked at my phone, and it was -8 degrees Fahrenheit. Bone-chillingly cold, over a foot of snow on the ground. And I was there doing a deep dive with one of our clients who was scaling up his business, taking on bigger projects, growing his team. And he wanted to get his team dialed in and wanted to get the right systems in place to support the growth. So that morning, I sat down with his team and I asked them this question. I said, what kind of builder do you guys want to be? Do you want to be a Burger King builder or a this is how we do it builder? What do I mean by Burger King builder? Well, years ago, Burger King's slogan was have it your way. You can have it your way. Burger King, have it your way. And I talked to a lot of builders, remodelers, general contractors, and for that matter, trade contractors who are operating exactly like Burger King. The clients determine the process, the pace, the timing, the communication, the rules of engagement. And they tell me things like, sometimes they say these things, sometimes they don't say them, but I can tell. I can read between the lines. I can hear this is what they believe. They believe things like, the client is paying us millions of dollars to build their project. We can't tell them what to do. Or the architect doesn't work for us. We can't hold them accountable. The architect works at a big fancy firm and they have their funky glasses and use these big words. We can't tell the architect what to do. The client is a very successful business owner. They're wealthy enough to build a house that we can't even afford to build. How can we possibly tell them what to do? So they let the client or the architect or the interior designer or the GC that they're working for, they let them have it their way. Burger King. They're basically saying, we're Burger King. Have it your way. The remodeler, the custom home builder just reacts and they play defense. And it is the root cause of a lot of problems. So here's what that looks like in the real world. Some of these symptoms or the side effects of the Burger King philosophy look like this. Pre-construction, in other words, the design and selections process can drag on forever because decisions don't get made, or they make a decision and then they change their mind, and then they change their mind again, and then they change their mind again. Projects start without complete selections because we can't wait for the client, or the client wants to get started. Sometimes the have it your way is the client says, hey, we want to get started as quickly as possible. We're really excited to get this project started. So let's just get started. And we don't need to figure out all this stuff later, or we don't need to figure all this stuff out now, right? We can figure that stuff out later. And that is the just enough to start trap, doing just enough to get started. And it's a trap. Here's what else the Burger King process looks like is clients decide how and when they're going to communicate and with whom they're going to communicate. So that means they're texting, emailing, calling multiple people after hours in some cases, maybe talking directly to subcontractors. There's a lot of he said, she said. Sometimes clients will just keep calling different people until they get the answer they want. I was in a meeting once with a different client several years ago. We came back from lunch and somebody said, hey, so-and-so, the landscaper called me and asked me a question about this. And then the next person came in and mentioned the landscaper on this project called me. Third person came in, said the same thing. His landscaper called me. And then the last person came in and somebody said, let me guess, the landscaper called you. And yeah, how'd you know? Well, this landscaper had called everybody on the team asking the same question. And maybe they were just looking for information, or maybe they just kept calling until they got the answer they wanted. So, clients, trade partners, architects, engineers, it's not clear who they call, so they just call whoever they want to. And if you're the owner, there's a pretty good chance you get called more than you should when you are a Burger King contractor. So as a result, subcontractors are confused, schedules slip, and when schedules slip, when projects that were supposed to kick off in the first quarter slide into the second quarter, that means revenue slips. And that revenue slips while your overhead is still running, which eats into your margins. And eventually you find yourself thinking, why does this feel so much harder than it should? One of our clients who went through our Systematize Your Construction Business program said this. Once he got into it, he said, quote, "I didn't realize I wasn't running the business. The client was." That was a punch in the gut, but it was also freeing at the same time, end quote. So now let's zoom out. When your clients run the process, when you're a Burger King builder, it doesn't just affect one project, right? It affects everything. Your PMs and superintendents are overloaded chasing decisions instead of actually executing the work. They're managing this tornado of changes in many cases. They're getting phone calls and texts early morning, after hours. In some cases, I've heard of getting messages from a husband and a wife at the same time that contradict each other. The team feels stressed because there's no clear path. It's like, what are we doing here? There's nothing to fall back on. There's no process to follow. You're really dependent on what the client wants to do. And they have to keep up with, what are we doing with this client? How are we letting this client have it their way? What about this client? And it's different. Your cash flow gets squeezed because projects start late or they stall out in the middle. I'm not sure which one is worse, for a project to stall out in the middle or for a project to start late. Maybe the worst case I've heard is projects will fall out. They'll fall off the table just prior to start because a client backs out at the last possible second. These constant changes affect your bottom line and sometimes make you say, you know what? I think orange is in my color wheel. I bet I would look good in an orange apron with my name written in Sharpie up here at the top. I could just go work at Home Depot, or brown is my color. I could just go drive for UPS. I hear they make pretty good money, and they could just leave it at home once they park the big brown truck. What's really dangerous about this is that it doesn't feel like a crisis. It doesn't feel like a crisis. This just feels normal. It just feels like this is how it has always been, and this is how it will always be. It's never going to change because we have to let our customers have it their way. So it keeps going month after month, year after year. And I want you to think about this. If you're like, yeah, that's me, man, we're stuck in Burger King mode. How long has this been going on in your business? Do you like it? If nothing changes, what does next year look like? Maybe you're trying to grow your business, trying to hire people, trying to take on more projects. What does it look like as you try to grow your business? Maybe you're not trying to grow the business. You're just trying to stabilize it. What does it look like to do this one more year and deal with the hundreds of messages a day and the chaos? Now I want you to picture the opposite. This may sound like you're painting with a magic paintbrush, but imagine that you wake up tomorrow morning and you say, you know what? I've made a decision. It's my business. I'm going to have it my way. I'm the one taking the risk. I'm the one putting the blood, sweat, and tears into this business. I've invested decades of time, maybe years or decades of my life into this business. I'm going to have it my way. You make a decision. It's my business. I'm going to have it my way. So you decide, we're done being a Burger King builder. We're going to be a this is how we do it builder. And you decide, you know what? Our clients, they're going to get a beautiful custom designed project, custom selections, custom design, but they don't get a custom process. They get a custom design with your standard process. They know what decisions are required, by when. They know what happens if deadlines are missed. It's clear that there are consequences if deadlines are missed. Your team knows who owns communication. Projects start with complete information. instead of just enough to start. You have a good, clean handoff from the office to the field. Changes are intentional, not chaotic. Decisions are made well in advance of when you need to order materials or hire subcontractors and vendors. Stress goes down. Predictability goes up. When you put a project on the schedule, you have a great deal of confidence of that project is going to start. When you say it's going to start, it's going to finish. When you say it's going to finish. So you can forecast your financials. Here's how one of our clients put it. After getting their pre-construction process dialed in, after deciding we're going to be a this is how we do it builder, here's what they said, quote, now our clients know what's expected of them and when the projects are smoother and we actually enjoy the work again, end quote. So at this point, I'm guessing some of you could be thinking one of a few things or a few thoughts that could be popping into your head. Like, yeah, that sounds great, but they're paying us a lot of money. How can we tell them no? How can we enforce deadlines with them? How can we tell them what to do? You might be thinking, well, construction is just chaos. I hear this every once in a while, somebody will say this out loud, but I'll hear this underlying belief. Well, construction is chaos. It's chaos. I'll tell you, the truth is construction does not have to be chaotic. Chaos is a choice. Chaos is a choice. If you have chaos in your business, maybe it comes from a customer. Who signed a contract with that customer? Who failed to set expectations with that customer? Who isn't willing to hold that customer accountable? Who didn't create a process and share that expectation with the customer? You have to take some ownership. So it's a choice. If you have employees who are creating chaos, keeping them around is a choice. Not training them is a choice. Not having a process for them to follow, not clearly defining roles and responsibilities, that's your choice. So chaos is a choice. The other thing people say is, these projects are different. Every project is different. We got to stay flexible. We have to be nimble. We have to be innovative, and systematizing things takes away flexibility and innovation. Feels too rigid. The truth is, discipline equals freedom. If you have no guardrails in a process, it's chaos. You need to have a disciplined process to follow. Another one is the architect doesn't work for us. We can't tell them what to do. Here's what we see over and over again. I talk to Burger King builders every week, and the builders who put a clear process in place, the folks we work with who create their process, they design their business, they make the decision, we're going to be a this is how we do it builder. They put clear processes in place. They don't lose respect, they gain it. Their clients don't fight with them, their clients appreciate it. The architects and engineers and interior designers and consultants respect them because they're a more professional organization. One of our clients said this, quote, I was nervous about pushing back on clients, but once we put the process in place, clients actually respected us more, end quote. Your clients are not professional clients. Most of your clients, if you're building custom homes or remodeling, commercial general contractor, most of your clients are not professional construction clients. They do something else. And one of the reasons they have to micromanage or feel like they need to guide the process is because they don't have confidence in your process. So you may be thinking, this woman's a pain in the ass, or they're micromanaging, or they're looking over our shoulder. That can be a symptom of low confidence because you're not leading the process and they're spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. They're damn sure going to lead the process if they feel like they need to. So leadership, discipline creates confidence for your clients, creates confidence for your team. So your team knows, okay, we're all running the same play from the same playbook. They know what everybody else is going to do. So how do you actually become a this is how we do it builder? I'm going to give you 3 steps to get started. 3 fundamental shifts, a couple of steps to get you started so you can shift from being a Burger King builder to a this is how we do it builder. First, you need to treat pre-construction like operations. You need to start thinking of the pre-construction phase like you do operations. First of all, you need to start thinking about pre-construction, period. If you're a custom builder, remodeler, commercial GC, you need to start thinking about the pre-construction phase like you do your operations phase. One of the most pivotal things you can do is to create a real pre-construction schedule that has design deadlines, selections deadlines, decision deadlines, change deadlines. You share this with clients. It becomes part of your contract. You remind them of these things, and then you hold the clients accountable to it. This is a big mindset shift. Too many times people just let the design and selections process just take as long as it needs. This is a creative process. We got to give it room to breathe. It's like fine wine. It just needs time. It needs to breathe. We can't rush them selecting their toilets and their light fixtures. It just needs to come. This divine spark of inspiration often takes time. And these pre-construction processes start at like 6 to 9 months, and then they slide out to 12 to 15 months. So you have to shift and start thinking about moving projects through pre-construction on a schedule. So you need to start thinking and acting like days in pre-construction are actually costing you something, because they are. One of the things I talk about in a recent podcast episode, one of the metrics, the hidden metrics in a construction business is dead days, the days where there's no activity on your project sites. They're really expensive because you need to be turning those days into dollars. And you need to start thinking about your days during the pre-construction phase like they're costing you something, because they are. You need to act like it matters when a project slides during pre-construction, because it does. You need to act like it matters when a client doesn't make their decisions on time, because it does. You need to drive projects through pre-construction like you would drive a project through construction. If you want some tips on how to cut your pre-construction time in half, go listen to episode 420 of the podcast. So I share some tips on there that I used. I spent years pushing very large projects through pre-construction. I share a few tips to do that. So number one, start treating pre-construction like operations and have a schedule. Second is clearly define communication rules. Clearly define communication rules. How communication happens, when it happens, where it happens, and who it happens with. There needs to be a single source of truth. You need to have one place you can go and see all of the important communication, decisions, selections, questions that were asked, answers that were given in one place. Burger King builders have all of those things spread out across text message strings and email threads and in their memory across different people. This is how we do it. Builders have a single source of truth where they can go look and say, hey, what conversations did we have about the flooring selections? Hey, it seems like the client is saying we forgot to do something, but I'm pretty sure that we shared that pricing with them and they said they declined. This is how we do it. Builders can go back and point to a message that says, look, this is where we presented that information. You either didn't respond in a timely manner or you said no. Remember? So how does communication happen? Where does it happen? Who does it happen with? Single source of truth. There needs to be a single point of contact, a SPOC. When I worked in big corporate, they loved acronyms. And one of their favorite acronyms was SPOC, S-P-O-C, single point of contact. You need a SPOC per phase. One person. There's an old saying that I've shared probably too many times, but the best way to starve a horse is to have two people feed it. And it's the same way. The best way to cause confusion with your clients is to have two people talking to them. So you need to have a single point of contact per phase during the sales process, pre-construction process, after it's handed off to construction, and then if there's a warranty phase. Single point of contact, they should know. So here's what this looks like in real life. All decisions, selections, and commitments will happen in our software like JobTread or BuilderTrend or CoConstruct. You need to start using your software like a funnel where you pour all communication, all information goes into your software. Every question, every decision, every commitment, every selection goes in there. No more text threads, no more emails. If there is a phone call or a meeting, it gets documented in your software. All communication goes through your software. So that way, when you have conversations or decisions are made, they're all in one place. When you hand a project off from one person to the next, they don't have to go ask, hey, Stephen, what did you and the customer decide about this? And then Stephen has to go back through his emails. No. Single source of truth. Now, this requires discipline. Like, oh, that sounds like a lot of work. Yeah, it is work. But you know what else is work? Is chasing down answers and decisions and spending 2 hours going back through text messages and emails and asking everybody on your team to do the same thing because you don't have a clear answer. So it requires discipline. You have to decide, are you going to be Burger King or are you going to be, this is how we do it? The third thing is to set these expectations with your client and with your team early and often. These expectations and this communication protocol, these deadlines, they go in your contract. They are shared as part of the sales process. You share these expectations and you share, this is how we do it during the sales process. Expectations are set, schedules are documented, communication protocols are discussed, change management is discussed. You train your clients on this is how we handle change orders. There will be change orders. This is how we're going to handle them. They're not evil. They're not an accusation. It's just that we started this contract with this baseline. There has been a change, and that's what change orders are for. So that you're not arguing later. You're not trying to fabricate evidence. You're just pointing back to things that are documented. And here's the truth. You may be thinking, oh gosh, this is actually going to make it harder to sell to clients. But the truth is you can actually differentiate yourself from the competition this way. The right clients, unless you want to work with micromanaging assholes, the right clients want you to have a process. They want transparency. They want good communication. This is one of the things that clients want that most contractors are really bad at is communication. They want these things. They want a professional builder who says, this is how we do it. So this is not something you have to overcome. It's not an objection you have to overcome. This is actually an advantage. This is how you differentiate yourself from the competition by saying, this is how we do it. Now, if you want some bonus points, here's something else you could do. A few months ago, we had our live meetup for our CEO Alliance members in Nashville, Tennessee. And we gave out our inaugural Da Vinci Award for innovation in running a construction business. And the idea was, what's a simple but powerful tool that you can use that can have a high impact on your business and how you run your business? So we had several submissions, and the winner was Andy Culp from Epic Building Company in the Columbus, Ohio area, and he called it the Epic Weekly Rundown. He took home some hardware for this idea, and here's what he did. Every week, his team would send out a client update at the same time, the same day every week that said, here's what was accomplished this past week, here's what's coming up, here's the plan for next week, here's what we need from you, here's where the budget stands, here are the pending changes, here's a financial summary, and here's even when your next invoice is coming out. So every week, this weekly update reinforces the process. It reminds people of the two questions that they have. There are two questions people have in many cases. What do I got to do? And when do I got to do it? So the other thing this does is it sets and resets expectations with clients. These are the deadlines that are coming up. These are the decisions that need to be made. So you're setting and resetting those expectations. And it reminds them, hey, this is how we do it. So you may be thinking, all right, that all sounds great, but I have so many questions. Like, how do I create a selection schedule? Where am I going to put it? What software should I use? How do we respond if the client's late? What is my team going to think? And should we change our email signature lines? And how are we going to fill in the blank? And when was the last time I ate at Burger King anyway? So that last question probably bogs you down with regret and indigestion. I know when I think about eating at Burger King. It fills me with regret. The other questions get you bogged down and overwhelmed trying to figure out all of this implementation. And then what you do is you get bogged down and you're like, this is just overwhelming. So you give up and you don't make a decision. I want to share some great advice that I heard from the CEO of a big company who said this: separate the decision from the implementation. Separate the decision from the implementation. What we do so often is we start to make a decision and then we immediately go into implementation. And because we start thinking, yeah, we should probably decide to do this. And then we get bogged down in all of the implementation and all of the details, and we just kick the can down the road and we don't make a decision. So separate the decision from the implementation. So all of this starts with one business decision. What kind of builder do you want to be? What kind of business do you want to run? Is it a Burger King, have it your way builder, where you let your clients have it their way and you give them a custom process? Or do you make the decision that we're going to be a this is how we do it business? Clients get a custom project, a custom design, custom selections, but they do not get a custom process. So that's the first thing. That's the first thing you have to do is make that decision. Don't get bogged down in the details. Don't get bogged down in implementation. Separate the decision from the implementation and make the decision. Which are you going to be? Burger King? If you're frustrated with being a Burger King builder, then make the decision that you want to be a this is how we do it builder. If you feel like, well, we have to, it's not worth the risk and the effort to become a this is how we do it builder, then make the decision that you're going to remain a have it your way builder. But make a decision one way or the other, and then you'll figure out the implementation. Right? Don't let questions about implementation keep you from making a decision. Make a firm decision, yes or no, and then you will figure out the implementation. Think about it. That's what you do. When you build something, you've committed to building something, and there are lots of questions. You don't have every answer figured out when you start a project, but you'll figure out the implementation, right? And it's the same way. You start with a decision, commit to that decision, you'll figure out the implementation as you go. So here's the truth. Here's the underlying foundation that all of this rests on. Okay. The foundation is you have to have a well-designed, documented pre-construction process. Pre-construction is the most overlooked phase in construction. I believe there is a pre-construction deficiency in most businesses. Most of the problems I hear people talk about, spending too much time in firefighting mode, profits are slipping, too much chaos. They get 100, 150, 200 interruptions a day. Clients are frustrated. Details are falling through the cracks. They can be traced back to a pre-construction deficiency. Pre-construction is the secret profit phase. And this is the foundation. You have to have a well-designed, documented pre-construction process. That's what all of these things we just talked about live on top of. And they stem from a pre-construction process. And that's exactly what we help our clients build inside of our Systematize Your Construction Business program. One of our clients said this: once we documented pre-construction, we stopped starting jobs without complete info. He said, night and day difference. Another one said, if we can stop redoing stupid little things with a good pre-con process, I honestly believe we'll pick up a full point of profit on every job. So if you're tired of being a have it your way builder and you want to be a this is how we do it builder, if you're serious about getting control of your projects, your team, your profits, and you recognize there's a pre-construction deficiency in your business, we can help. The first step is to go schedule a business evaluation call with my team. We'll help you install the foundation so you can transition from being a Burger King builder to a this is how we do it builder. The first step is go schedule a call with my team. You can go to the link in the show notes, schedule that business evaluation call, or you can go to constructionleadingedge.com/apply. APPLY, answer a few questions, and then you'll be able to schedule a call with my team. So that link's in the show notes. Go schedule your call right now if you're ready to make that shift. But here's my challenge for you is make a firm decision about your business. Decide. Don't get bogged down in implementation. Decide. If you're tired of these things we've talked about, make a decision. Either decide to accept it and then stop bitching and moaning about it and just accept your decision, or make a decision to make a change and do something about it. But it all starts with a decision. My name is Todd DeWalt from ConstructionLeadingEdge.com. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.